It's an honor to introduce David James Duncan today. I am going to skip the convention of reading a list of his best-selling books and awards and conservation efforts, and instead err on the side of the personal. I first met David James Duncan's writing as soon as I got home from my mission to Berlin, Germany. I was living in Germany with a companion from Camas, Washington, and we had talked about our favorite authors. And her testimony of his books was the same zeal and fervor that she gave when she gave others the Book of Mormon. We've had an experience about this earlier today. And so as soon as I got home, I picked up his books, and I immediately fell in love with them. David James Duncan's books will make you laugh, both out of joy and because of the absurdity of life that he so wonderfully describes. They will make you cry tears of sorrow and, again, tears of joy and hope at the resilience of the human spirit and the natural world. Sorry, I will try not to get emotional. His books will make you see the physical world differently, from a bumblebee to the highest mountain peaks that you can imagine. They will make you see humans differently, and they will make you fall in love with characters you thought you couldn't love or understand. Businessmen, parents, children, fishermen, soldiers, draft dodgers, students, and all kinds, priests, all kinds of characters. And his books will make you want to pray or meditate or otherwise find a way to bridge the human and divine. I think he has a very good gift for doing that. So I don't want to go too long. I just want to introduce David James Duncan as a writer who cares as much about sentences as he does about characters, as much about the joy of language as he does about the structure of a story, as much about the truth of science and history as he does about the truth of feeling. If you let these books change you, they will make you a better person. With that, David James Duncan.
Thank you for that. That was very kind. No pressure. This is a really long book, and I want to read just a scene from the end of it that kind of shows what the characters come to. I think any of us who are or know vegans know that they can be very doctrinaire, and I've at some of my readings I've had people come up to me who were vegans and said that fly fishing is nothing but the senseless torture of the fish, and we've had some interesting discussions. One of them started off, I asked her, well, you're an animal rights activist. What about insect rights? Have you seen what trout do to them? And that particular exchange went really well for me, but there's a place that there's a community that forms in this novel. I just realized I have on my bifocals instead of my reading glasses. Yeah, bifocals it will be. They're here somewhere, but I don't know where. Sunglasses.
Sorry,
Yeah, right. Yeah, going fishing tomorrow, but I'm already excited. Anyway, the vegan in this story falls in love with a cowboy, and I love the scene that an exchange she has with a very kind ranch foreman right after. Well, it explains it in the story, but this is just a scene late in the novel that shows you the kind of overlooking stereotypes about each other that enable a community to become more cooperative and vibrant. And it's called Clouds and Curtains Were in Their Bodies When They Fell. Oh, and the narrator of this novel is called the Holy Goat, because when I wrote a book called God Laughs and Plays that had some essays in it that made me feel vulnerable. One was called What Fundamentalists Need for Their Salvation. The thesis was all the rest of us, that's what they need. And so I grew this beard, but shaved my mustache because I was trying to look like an Amishman so that I wouldn't be persecuted as the non-religious infidel that I am. When Sherman Alexie, I'm friends with Sherman Alexie, the wonderful bipolar Spokane Indian writer. I've known him since he and his wife first fell in love. And when he saw my goatee and no mustache, and in those days it was red, he just pointed at me and said, "The Holy Goat!" And I really liked the nickname, so I kept it. So the Holy Goat is interviewing Cale the Pope Broussard. Cowboys are big on giving each other nicknames. Cale the Pope looks a little bit like JP2, and so he got nicknamed the Pope and was not proud of being compared to this little homunculus of a guy when he's 6'2". But anyway, so the Holy Goat is interviewing Cale the Pope Broussard. "Sure, I'll talk about the truck Ida and TJ purchased for us," Cale told me, the Holy Goat, as we met for drinks and dinner at the Loco Creek Steakhouse. The traveling abattoir, some call it, as if a French word can disguise its purpose. A slaughterhouse and meat locker on wheels is what this one is. Just remembering I was told not to block a camera angle or something. A slaughterhouse and meat locker on wheels is what this one is, but grim as that sounds, I'm not ashamed of it. Our ability to ready our own animals for market ended our need for the international beef cartel, freed us of the feedlots, and allows our cattle to die where they were born, same as I hope to do. So when Don Steedles and his sons drive the abattoir up, I feel duty-bound to help move the steers to the killing place. I can't pull the trigger, I just watch. And they wound me, those killings. But ever since Risa told me that her man, Meister Eckhart, said, "Every creature is a word of God," I feel an obligation to be wounded by each steer's death. Has there ever been a slaughter day, I asked the Pope, where each thing that happened felt like it couldn't have gone better in spite of, or maybe because of, this wound you choose to feel at each death? Cale took a pull on his Knob Creek, thought a moment, and said, "Since we worked out how to conduct their life's end, it's much the same every time. Things happened last fall that hit me where I live, but it was after the killings and butcher work and the abattoir drove away, so it doesn't really speak to your question." Then I changed my question. I said, "Tell me anything about a slaughter day that hit you where you live." Cale settled the way he does before he unspools a story. "I was smoking a little Dominican cigar I believe you once gave me, HG, to smell something besides the departed creatures I'd loved. I was sitting on a boulder amid the gore-covered ground where 8 steers had just died, so I was surprised to see Regina Cloud headed in my direction. Feeling sure she'd veer off, I turned away toward the sunset and steeped in my feelings. Next thing I knew, Regina was beside me. It's damn fine print. Next thing I knew, Regina was beside me wearing an expression so kind it shook me a little. I then saw that, to reach me, this sweet woman, vegan from birth, had gotten blood all over her pretty fake leather boots. That shook me a little. When she then sat on the boulder beside me, reached an arm around me, and gave me the longest, gentlest half hug I've ever received, I was in trouble. "I've been spying on you all day," she said, "and you know what I keep seeing, how much you love the young cattle that die here. It's in your body language, in your eyes this instant. You're all alone up here being heartbroken, Cale. That's why the hug. Well, thanks, I said, but can we not speak of it just now? Because as anyone will tell you, Cale the Pope does not cry, but if we talk more of this, he might. So she didn't say a word. She did something worse. She lay her head on my shoulder and just left it there. And good God, H.G., that moment, eyeing the blood on her boots amid the sad scent of Highlands, I felt so much love for this secret daughter and this way of life and death we've all got going here, I could hardly bear it. The reason I feel broken up, I managed to mumble to Regina, is a choice. Explain it to me, she said, leaving her head where it was. More sensible cattlemen choose not to love creatures they know they're going to kill. They keep it cold, which I understand. But I prefer to appreciate each steer from birth to death, its early doom at our hands included. Highland calves aren't smart, but they're incredibly charming, and so in love with the world, their love sneaks up on some of us. Me and Buford get slammed by it, as you know. Short as their lives are, the land on which we tend them becomes storied by the goofy things they do, their mad random gambles and games, the dangerous fixes they get themselves into. Our rescues are the goofiest of them. Oh, with the bifocals, every time I look away, I can't find my place. Our rescues are the goofiest of them, put us at serious risk at times. Then they reach 2.5, and our brave rescues are undone by Don Steedle's unerring rifle shot. I choose to ache over that, because the refusal to ache over the ending life of an Eckhart word of God is why giant industrial feedlots and slaughterhouses are the way it's done now. Far better to ache, is my feeling, than to pile horror upon horror on every animal and human involved in their departures. Did Regina say anything to that? I asked. Her head on my shoulder said everything, Cale told me, until I blew it. Do you know Wendell Berry's hog-killing poem? I asked her, and her head left my shoulder. What am I saying? I told her, of course you don't. Sorry, Regina. But it's a prayer, really, asking for the quickest, calmest kill possible, which is the best thing we can offer. Let them stand for the bullet, Wendell writes, and stare the shooter in the eye. Let them die while the sound of the shot is in the air. Let them die as they fall. And if it was up to me, I'd recite those words to diners wherever our beef is served. I'd tell them how our little Golgotha, thanks to Don's dead steady aim, does let them die as they fall. I love that animal on your plate, I'd say, and I delivered him to where we killed him, and I kept loving him as he fell. What you're tasting was for once done right. But what diner on a date wants to hear that? This diner, Regina told me. I came up to bloody my boots in what happened here and to hear you describe it, for which I thank you. But I also ask a favor, Cale. It would help Buford and me a lot if you'd talk to us both the way you're talking to me now. Because we're not just in love with each other. We're in love with this whole place and don't wish to know it in some fractured carnivore versus vegan way. We want to know what's real here and to love whatever's lovable. And you're the Elk Moon long-timer, wise enough to help us with that. Well, I said, if Buford's not too busy, there's no time like the present. So down the hill, she went to where, at the end of the hard day he works daily, Buford was still tending horses. And I saw nothing but what's real as Regina reached him and right away kissed him, work dirty though he was. I saw what's real in the way she threaded her arm through his, and how he inclined his head to listen to her, in the easy rhythm of their walk as they set out toward me, the deep wear and dirt in their clothes as they drew closer, the October light in their eyes as they arrived. Regina's right, I told Cale. You are the one to convey what's real here. You're an eloquent man, Pope. Oh, but Regina outdid me, H.G. Listen. When the two of them arrived at my rock, her first words were, the next animal you asked Don Steedles to drop, Cale. I want to be there with Buford, watching. I want to see for myself that it dies as it falls. And then I want to see it butchered and help if I can. I want to know what this place we love turns a calf's body into and how best to take that body apart to feed people. Can I bear that? I don't know, but it's time I tried. She sought strength then, HG, by drawing a deeper breath. And after it's been hung and aged, she said, and a maestro like you, TJ or Buford, grills it, I want one bite of Eckhart's Word of God. Hearing this, Buford's jaw dropped so low I could see his whole jaw. Just one bite, Regina said in that calm, even voice of hers. And though Buford got his mouth closed, his eyes had filled. I want to taste the body and the blood, she said, which really got to poor Buford. That grassiness you talk about, that elk moon June and July bounty, that September field you save all summer, their going away present, you call it. That's a sweet way of talking, but unless I taste of it, it's just pretty words. For the steer's sake and mine, I need to know just the once, the flavors of these animals you and Buford so love and sacrifice even so. Because there's another pretty word some visitors like to bring to the elk moon, holistic. But if that word doesn't mean what's actually being done here, it doesn't mean a thing. So who am I to refuse one bite of what sunlight, grass, the life's work of my husband, and miracle combined to create a soft-eyed, red-banged, 30-month-old Highland steer? I want that to enter me. Regina said, while Buford leaned over his tomato sauce can, hoping his skull spurt would blind me to his spurting tears. To save myself from a similar fate, I looked past Regina to a bunch of our kids, laughing as they scared ravens and magpies off the gore in the kill zone, while Eddie, Dodie, and Risa kept mopping up, and Buford set up sprinklers to wash the blood back into the earth and the tears off his face. It then felt so right, HG, to leave Regina's man in peace, offer my arm, cross the bloodied ground, and say to her the things I've wanted to say to diners as she and I studied the place we gave the steers their last supper, place the bullets struck, place they fell, place where they were slaughtered, tracks of the departing abattoir in the dry Indian summer grass. So we continued up through fields our steers grazed all the way to the horizon, where I described to Regina the towering clouds and huge gray to black curtains of rain that grow the grass from March into summer heat. And if you're still fishing, what caused me to raise the Elk Moon water table, HG, the time has come. It was Regina saying in a voice only sheer wonder can create, so clouds and curtains were in their bodies as they fell. Beautiful, I whispered. Yes, it was, Cale said, but the total number of tears summoned by that beauty was 2, damn it. So don't go turning it into a deluge in your chronicles. Only the 2, Cale. Swear to God, and in honor of each, my 2 favorite new bourbons are headed for the cabinet you shared with me all these years. That a trace of spirits might remain in our bodies as we fall, quoth Cale. God, I love the things that good man says and feels. We could do Q&A, or I could read another short piece. What's that? I will read you the story of the best thing that ever happened to me in the state of Utah. This is called an old gold elevator in unlikely Ogden, Utah, and it's pure nonfiction. 11 p.m., late March 2003. I'm driving the interstate into Ogden, Utah. 40 years ago, one Delmer Carlton Duncan, an itinerant Montana cowboy and, once upon a time, the father who abandoned my own father at age 5, died alone in this town. What would my absentee granddad make of what Ogden has become today? American flags fly from nearly every car's antenna, and 4 flags fly from the pickups, 2 front, 2 back. A towering Dodge Ram tailgates me for a while, then blasts by at 90, its quadruple Old Glories raggling so fiercely they'll be in shreds within days. More than one way to desecrate a flag, I can't help but mutter. The 490-mile drive from Missoula to Ogden and U.S. invasion of Iraq have fried me. When I reach my hotel, I head straight to the bar to find it's alcohol-free. Joseph Smith, really? No cushion between my weary mind and 3 wall-mounted TVs blaring Fox News accounts of us mowing down them while the Coke-sipping patrons cheer as if it's football. I try to cheer up by remembering the old saying, no news is Fox News. But the word Iraq the TVs forced me to notice is now being pronounced Iraq. Does that make my half-Italian wife, Adrian, Italian? My father is dying in an alien city just as his father died here. I want to protect my wife from becoming Italian. I want to hug my dad. But I'm in Ogden for the next few days to represent contemporary Western American literature to men and women the same age as those manning the joysticks that spray the blood and crush the bodies in this war. Shock and awe. The leaders of our nation actually named this invasion Shock and Awe. I know some Western American literature I wouldn't mind sharing with those leaders. Jim Harrison. Late in life, I've lost my country. Everywhere, the malice of unearned power. I flee the bar for the thankfully empty lobby and check in. My room's on the 7th floor. The old elevator's doors are triumphant Mormon gold. The gilt face of the Western American mirrored in the doors looks anything but triumphant. Pressing the up button, I whisper a little prayer I once brought home from India that in English might translate, "Love has placed me in this situation." I then wait so long for the elevator that I sigh, "Thanks, love," and lug my suitcase and heavy book bag up the 7 flights. My room turns out to be generic. I customize it by covering the propaganda-rife TV with the extra blanket from the closet, wash up, douse the lights, and try my very best to send prayer clouds of protection to scared, hurt, or dead Iraqi children, my dying father, my dead granddad. I'd aim solace at our troops too, but Fox News and Ogden's streets seem to have that more than covered. I sleep poorly when I sleep at all. The one dream I can remember is of teenage boys with sticks crushing Banty chickens without mercy as they cower in the corner of a pen. I wake to the news of our Iraq victory blasting through my walls from TVs on 2 sides. I brew the dismal prepackaged coffee, taste it, dump it down the drain. Checking the weather outside, I see broken clouds, seriously outnumbered by the flags again raggling from every truck and car. I set out for a long day's work, exhausted before I've begun. Because I'm toting the book bag and oversized briefcase, I pass up the stairs to wait out the slow-mo elevator. Pressing the down button, I again whisper the words that mean, "Love has placed me in this situation." At long last, the bell dings, the golden doors sigh open, and some kind of Dharma field opens up before me. 10 beaming 8-year-old girls stand in multicolored ballet leotards, satin vests, a lot of pastel chiffon, and scuffed athletic shoes to save the pristine ballet slippers they each hold in their small hands. Their united gaze is a 20-fold beam of light. The 10 of them give me a mirthful gander, see they've shocked and awed me, and burst into laughter. All aboard, a robin-egg blue ballerina calls out. I want to, God do I, but the elevator looks full. Seeing my hesitation, all 10 girls squeeze so eagerly together they create room for 6 or 8 of me. Honored to the marrow, I step inside. The instant I do, 4 girls turn away from me and face the back wall. My pulse goes jerky. Something I've done offended them? Seeing my confusion, a spring green girl smiles up at me and says, "We're Amish." To which a pale orange girl with missing teeth adds, "Here for the dance convention." So don't worry, says Spring Green as the doors side closed. They aren't facing away from you. That'd be mean. They're facing away from the door. That's how we show the elevator. We shun it. When the shunners glance over their shoulder to see how I take this, I adopt a grave expression and turn away from the golden doors myself. 9 girls again burst into laughter, but a straight-faced girl in purple begins tugging on my sleeve. Yes, I ask. We shun purple too, says Purple, inspiring another round of laughter, mine included. Our elevator starts reluctantly earthward. I am so grateful for its slowness. We got to get up at 4:30 this morning, an apricot-colored girl enthuses, because Jedediah had to milk the cows at 5, explains Purple. Because we're Amish, repeats Spring Green, and Amish girls cook for Amish boys, says Apricot. So we all got up to make Jedediah breakfast, explains Robin Egg Blue. So if I become Amish, would you get up early to cook for me? All 10 girls giggle at the thought of the worn old Westerner becoming Amish. Come on, I plead. I love the broad-brim hats and horse-drawn buggies. Ich spreche Deutsch, too, a little. I'll bet you girls can really cook. More titters at the very idea. I know Amish girls play softball, I tell them. I've watched them in Montana. They were good. One girl in a full-length dress and prayer cap dove to catch a ball and make it out. But I didn't know Amish girls did ballet. Well, we do, says Pale Orange. Well, I'll bet you're good at that, too. Eager nods all around. Ding, says the elevator as it shivers to a stop. The word lobby lights up on the golden panel. When the shutters and I turn to face forward, all 11 of us beam at each other's gilt faces as we await the snail-slow doors, haul to the lobby, wrangling flags, malice and power, Western lit students, and dance convention beyond. Drawing the deepest possible breath of what thrives in this elevator, I feel I've inhaled reason enough for ours or any world to exist. The doors sigh open. I duck out and step aside so the girls can chase their pent delight down the hall. But no such chase occurs. Instead, Spring Green stops squarely in front of me, peers up into my eyes, and with utter sincerity says, "Thank you for riding the elevator with us." Stunned speechless by her graciousness, I bow. Now Purple stops before me. "Yeah," she cries, "thanks a lot." When I turn back to her and bow deeply, Purple bows even more deeply in return. As Spring Green and Purple step aside to await us, the girls in the elevator form a line and begin filing slowly past me as if I'm some sort of royalty. A pink dancer too shy to speak curtsies, the first curtsy I've received in my entire life. As goosebumps of happiness erupt, I bow. A red dancer extends her small hand to shake my big one. We grin, shake, and bow in perfect unison. Then Pale Orange shakes with me and pipes, "Thanks." And wily Robin Egg says, "We'll cook if you'll milk." An apricot arches so far back in a 360-degree twirl that she's able to beam at me all the way around, and I bow, and they thank until each girl in her way has rewarded a complete stranger for sharing a 30-second ride in an elevator they shun. Only then do they flush like a covey of pastel chiffon quail and fly down the hall. Because gratitude's tears look little different than sorrow's, I wait a while before I follow, but when I reach the lobby, they're gone. Yet every face in their wake remains lit by their passing, and some old awe in me has resurfaced, revealing a grove of ancient trees I once worshipped, then somehow lost sight of, still rooted and soaring in my chest. I step out into spring wind, shadow-streaked sunlight, and roaring pickups to find the sky vast, straight into the heavens, with broken clouds and unbroken birds soaring and clouds wraggling just as clouds, birds, and flags are created to do. I bow once more. In a blessedly slow elevator in unlikely Ogden, Utah, 10 8-year-old Amish girls have flown me home to my beautiful, lost country. The absurd question. Any questions? Yes.
I'm just really interested in the character of Regina, so if you describe kind of what the inspiration was for creating a character who has this desire to get in a place and be in a relationship with someone who's so different than what she's described.
Because we fall in love with our hearts, not with our heads. She was shocked too. Buford was shocked, but as soon as they met each other at a concert. And the woman who is Regina's boss is a famous rock and roller. And she's absolutely dependent on Regina's vegan cooking. And Regina also helps her organize her life, helps her organize her tours. Very, very smart young woman. And suddenly she's in love with a cowboy and just disappears in Montana and can't find her. And so the old rock and roller is freaking out. But when she sees them together, she gets it. And it's probably libelous, but another reason I wanted to write about this kind vegan was, I don't know if you've ever heard the DJ Moby give a concert where the whole thing is just a screed against meat eaters. But I don't find those very entertaining, so I thought I'd write something a little different. Yeah. Yes, back there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the creating characters, I'm really heavily dependent on wonderful moments I've had in real life, but I give myself the freedom to completely scramble the situation, add something that one person in Massachusetts said to me in an email, and something a friend in California said in a postcard, and just put it all together in alignment with, there was this wonderful this old man in Missoula when I first moved there who was an editor of Collier's magazine, and he had a saying, "A writer will still the coppers from his dead mother's eyes." And I like that. It's not true, but there were no coppers on my mother's eyes, and yeah. But yeah, I don't know if that answered your question, but that's some of it. Yes. I feel most fulfilled by Sun House, but I also feel like maybe some of my others are more accessible, and I'm grateful to them for being more accessible. The River Y and the Brothers Case specifically, I was really happy writing both of those books. And when Little Brown, I mean, they both still sell pretty well, so it doesn't feel right, but young 20-something-year-old David is still paying some of my bills as 72-year-old David, which doesn't seem fair. You know, I should be taking care of him, but I don't know how to transfer the money back to when I needed it. Yes. I'm sorry, I've listened to way too much rock and roll. Yeah, I'd like to live in a world where spiritual language is ordinary. it's formed, but there are moments when we don't know why the ordinary becomes the extraordinary. Then it recedes quietly back into the ordinary, but it leaves us with kind of a fairy dusting of wonder and joy. And I just think the world could never have too much of that sensation. So I try to write work that might transmit a little bit the beginning of such feelings in a reader. Yes? No, that's from a book I'm working on now called Flame Language. Yeah, I have a lot of, I wrote a lot of nonfiction all through the Sun House years, and I'm gathering that all together in a new book. And got 330 pages, it's getting there. Yeah, way in the back. Well, taking the death of the cattle out of the slaughterhouse was, as Cale said, it now allows these steers that he loves to die in the place they were born and grew up, the same as he hopes to do. And that really was my whole intention. Yeah. Yes. That's really kind of true. I started off with 2 novels that did really well. But while I was doing that, the Forest Service had completely transformed all the rivers I know in Oregon by clear cutting them, often right down to the flow. And I just had to do some kind of activist nonfiction cry against the way the very ability of rivers to produce wild salmon and steelhead was being obliterated by Ronald Reagan. I mean, Reagan was a nice old guy, but he appointed the head of the Forest Service, the head of Louisiana Pacific Timber Company as head of the Forest Service. So all our national forests were being managed like a timber company, and huge rafts of beautiful old growth trees from the places that I knew inside out were being shipped to Japan at a loss to taxpayers. And that made no sense to me. And so I did quite a bit of protest work for a few years when my daughters were young, because I know I get obsessed when I'm writing a novel, and I didn't want to be obsessed with a novel while raising my wonderful daughters. So it worked well for my family and for me to become an activist for a while. Any more questions? Yes.
You introduced me to Brian Doyle, One River of Song.
One Long River of Song.
Can you talk a little bit about your relationship and how you two shared writing?
Yes. Brian was the literary brother of a lifetime. We became extremely close. We were in contact for about 20 years total, but when he wrote Mink River, he sent me the manuscript. It's a wonderful novel set in Oregon, and but it's told in a voice that is half Tillamook County and half Sligo County in Ireland, and I just love the melodic. He can really get musical when he turns it up. And he just was a wonderful friend and wonderful writer, and I helped that book out quite a bit. He had a chapter at the end that was just destroying it. There was a guy who knew everything about trees, and you're in the middle of this wonderful flowing story, and you get this treatise on kinds of trees that was like, Brian, what are you doing? And lucky for me, Mary, his wife, also hated that chapter, so so we fixed it, and the book did really well. And and Brian wrote a letter of gratitude to me, and nobody did gratitude like Brian. It was man, thank you in a million ways for this novel that meant a million things to me. And, it was the first novel he ever managed to complete, and then it was really successful. And, and One Long River of Song was Brian's description of Van Morrison. And when we were trying to title the novel, Little Brown got together in a committee, and when publishers get together in a committee, bad things happen. They wanted to name Brian's book after one of Mary Oliver's most famous lines in her poetry. To name Brian's book after, come on, Mary Oliver, it's Brian. And it was really fun putting the book together. I was struggling a little to know how to structure it, and then I just started finding these amazing headings in Brian's own work. So that each of I think there's 5 sections or 6 sections. It would really help if I had the book so I could give you examples. But as soon as I was using Brian's words to apply the themes, it just fell together really fast. I was able to put that book together in, I think, maybe about 4 months. I had wonderful help from Chip Blake, who used to be the head of Orion, and also from a woman in Montana, my dear friend Katie, who lives in Whitefish, and she knows Brian's work really well. So she provided me with some essays that I hadn't even known of that turned out to be wonderful additions. And I sent it to Michael Peach, was the head of Hatchet Book Group, and he was also my Son House editor. And when I sent the manuscript to him, he loved it at once, sent it to Little Brown, and they were ready to publish it in a couple of days. That never happens when you submit a book. And the book really paid off their judgment because it sold like hotcakes. Yeah. Are you exhausted? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
One of my favorite writing stories is Albert Man's Daughter.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just curious if there's any nonfiction elements in that. Part of the reason I ask is I couldn't help but notice some of the really interesting
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There's some. The little girl, Dory, watching Dan Rather. There was a group in Seattle that actually for a while were thinking of making a movie of it. And I secretly make soundtracks for film. And I made this soundtrack to the tune of I gave my love a cherry that had no stone. I gave my love a chicken that had no bone. But it's all Dan Rather, just talking about mayhem and horror on the news to me playing that song on an electrified dulcimer. And it's pretty cool. It would have been really great in the movie, but Hollywood is so fickle. Yes.
You talked about writing as a spiritual practice. How many differences in your experience writing autobiographically, like passion versus fiction?
Yeah, I do several things differently. When I wrote the Mickey Mantle koan, pretty famous essay that was in Harper's and then later in River Teeth, about my brother's hero being Mickey Mantle, and my mother wrote the Mick asking for an autographed baseball, and so Mickey signed it to my pal John, August 6, 1965, which is the day my brother died, and it arrived the day he was being embalmed. So the essay is about my struggle with receiving something from my brother's hero that kind of only made me feel worse for quite a while. But then my mother took things in hand, and at the end of John's life, after he was embalmed, she went and showed him the baseball. And when she did that, the undertakers were combing my brother's hair. And he had beautiful auburn hair, and he was very vain about his appearance. And he really got on well with girls and always had a really cool girlfriend. And so my mom because Mickey Mantle was in the room when they were doing some kind of Elvis the Pelvis number on my brother's hair that was just not right for him, and she fixed it. So that felt pretty cool. Now are you exhausted? That was fun. Thank you.